Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a big one. It's something that a lot of people struggle with building a personal brand in the digital world. And we're going to dive into some inspiring success stories from Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It. We're going to pull some advice from Gary V himself. And I think there's something here for everyone listening, even if you don't consider yourself an entrepreneur.
You know, it's interesting. We tend to think of entrepreneurship and those who build successful personal brands as overnight successes. But Gary Vaynerchuk makes a point of highlighting the journeys, the struggles,
Yes.
the aha moments,
Yeah.
the things that really changed everything for these folks.
Okay, so it's more about the process, not just hitting some magic formula.
Yeah, exactly. Take John Lee Dumas, for example.
Yeah.
He hosts Entrepreneurs on Fire, an incredibly successful podcast. I mean, the guy's making like $200,000 a month from it now.
Wow, $200,000 a month.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
He struggled at first.
Really?
Yeah, he openly admits that he didn't quite grasp personal branding initially.
You're kidding me. I mean, he's killing it now, so how did he turn things around?
Or persistence. He read Crushing It
Yeah.
multiple times.
Multiple.
Yeah, I think he even said he listened to the audiobook like 3 times before it really clicked for him.
Wow.
It just proves that building a brand isn't always a straight line to success, right?
Right.
It's about sticking with it even when things feel a little murky.
Yeah. It's like that for anything you try to do well at, right?
Absolutely.
It makes you realize that even these people who seem like they just, have it all figured out,
Yeah.
they had to put in the work and find their own path too.
Yeah, and this actually ties into a bigger point that Gary Vee makes about the digital landscape, right? The world is changing so quickly, and he actually expresses some regret for not documenting his early journey.
Oh, interesting.
He says he missed a chance to share those valuable lessons. And, imagine if we had access to his early stumbles and pivots.
That's such a good point. Things move so fast online, and I feel like those early missteps are almost more valuable than like the highlight reel.
Yet, you got to be willing to adapt quickly. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the big takeaways here.
It is. And, think about Karina Garcia going from waitressing to building $1 million slime business through YouTube. Slime. Talk about a pivot. But it makes you think, like, how do you spot these opportunities before they become mainstream?
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the platforms, all the strategies.
Absolutely.
Gary Vee is all about passion and hustle, but that can feel a little bit abstract, right?
Yeah, like where do you even begin?
And that's what's interesting about these entrepreneurs featured in Crushing It. They all genuinely love what they do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
can't fake that kind of passion.
Right? It shines through.
It's the driving force that fuels the long hours and the inevitable setbacks.
Yeah, and we see that with Amy Schmittauer, right?
Yeah.
Building her vlog and consulting business, she leaned into her skills and priced them confidently.
And that's a great point, too.
Like recognizing your own value.
Yeah.
Right? Which is tough when you're starting out.
And I think this is where Vaynerchuk's emphasis on speed comes in. He's all about doing more than thinking.
Yeah, he talks about being wrong 10 times and right 3.
Right, rather than playing it safe and only trying 3 times.
Right.
And I love that.
I can see how that could be a game changer because you're not getting bogged down in perfection. You're just out there iterating and learning from every experience.
Exactly. And it's, think about Alex, the founder of Foolie's Clothing.
Foolie's Clothing, okay.
Very limited resources, started by literally ironing the word Foolies onto a T-shirt.
Wow.
But he managed to build a brand that resonated with major influencers like Shonda Rhimes.
It's amazing. But it wasn't just the design, right? Like, I remember he used to send personalized letters to every customer in the early days.
Building those relationships.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of people miss, I think, with personal branding. It's not just about broadcasting a message. It's about building a community, those genuine relationships.
Yeah, and that's where the power of authentic storytelling comes in. Think about Rich Rollright. Lawyer to ultra-endurance athlete to podcaster, all while battling addiction and finding his true purpose. His story resonates because it's real.
So real, and his wife Julie played a huge role too, right? Living in a yurt in Hawaii while he was figuring things out.
Dedication.
Talk about a support system.
Speaking of support systems, remember Rodrigo Tasca, the videographer?
Refresh my memory.
Well, he actually moved back in with his parents to bootstrap his business.
Oh, wow.
He even rebranded from Rodrigo Tasca Productions to just Tasca Studios
Interesting.
because it resonated better in his local market.
So smart. It shows you have to be willing to adapt your approach based on your audience and your situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about journeys and pivots and hustle and passion, but before we jump into specific platforms, I want to touch on a really important point that Vaynerchuk makes.
Sure.
He talks about Oprah, Muhammad Ali, The Rock, these people who built brands that transcend any single platform. So it's not about being a YouTube star or an Instagram influencer. It's about creating a legacy that extends beyond a particular channel, right?
It's about building a recognizable presence that people trust
Trust.
and want to be a part of. And in today's world, we have more control over how we shape that perception than ever before.
So it's not about waiting for someone to discover you. It's about actively crafting your narrative and putting yourself out there.
Taking control.
I love that.
And that leads us to the big question. How do we translate all of this into specific platforms?
That's where it gets tactical, right?
Yes. And we've got a lot to cover from musical.ly to podcasts. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready for this?
Hit me.
Let's start with a platform that might surprise you. Musical.
Musical. I thought that was like just for teenagers lip syncing, Is that even still around?
Well, that's the common perception. And yeah, the platform's definitely evolved a lot, but that's exactly what makes it so interesting from a brand building perspective.
Okay. How so?
Well, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about how even those news platforms, the ones that might feel a little off the radar, they can be really powerful.
Powerful how?
It's all about reaching new audiences.
Yeah.
Audiences that maybe aren't as saturated with, traditional marketing.
So you're saying it's about being ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Recognizing potential before everybody else jumps on board.
I like that.
Vaynerchuk actually uses musical in some really unconventional ways. Like, he'll grab attention with a funny clip of himself jumping through a ceiling set to a song.
Okay, I got to see this.
And then he'll follow it up with a message about entrepreneurship or hard work.
So it's like entertainment as a hook, but then delivering real value.
Exactly. Using the platform's strengths to your advantage.
That's interesting.
The takeaway is that it's not about how long a platform lasts, right? It's about capitalizing on its existence while it's hot.
Yeah.
Go where the attention is, even if it feels a little outside your comfort zone.
That makes a lot of sense. So speaking of comfort zones, what about Snapchat? I feel like I've heard a lot of people saying that it's kind of dying down. Is it even worth investing time in?
Yeah, there's definitely a perception that it's lost ground to Instagram stories.
Yeah.
But Snapchat still has a huge user base, and it offers something unique.
Oh, like what?
It's a platform built on authenticity. Raw, unpolished content.
Yeah.
Capturing those real-life moments without all the filters and perfection that we see elsewhere.
So it's like a behind-the-scenes look into your world.
Exactly. And Gary Vee points to DJ Khaled as someone who crushed it on Snapchat just by being himself, sharing everyday moments, successes, even those mishaps like that hilarious jet ski incident.
Oh my gosh, yes. That jet ski incident, I remember that.
It went viral, right?
Totally.
And that's the beauty of Snapchat. It's about capturing those raw, relatable moments that connect with people on a human level. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It just has to be real.
I like that. So even if it's not as polished as Instagram, Snapchat can still be really valuable for personal branding, especially for people who might be a little camera shy or intimidated by, having to create perfect content.
You got it. And plus, that time constraint forces you to be creative. You can't spend hours editing and perfecting a Snapchat story.
Right.
It has to be spontaneous
in
the moment.
I'm starting to see the appeal. Okay, let's shift gears to Twitter. What are some of the key strategies for success on that platform? Seems like a whole different beast.
It is a bit different. Twitter is all about listening, engaging, and building relationships strategically. It's a fantastic platform for joining conversations, connecting with influencers in your niche, and sharing your expertise.
But it's all about words, right? Like you need to be really sharp and witty to stand out on Twitter.
You definitely need to be able to communicate effectively in a limited character count. But it's more about providing value and engaging in meaningful conversations. Gary Vee talks about the example of an aspiring sportscaster using Twitter to build her brand.
Oh, how does she do that?
Well, she could spend a few hours each day engaging with people who are talking about, specific teams, players, or sporting events.
Okay.
Providing insightful commentary, building those connections.
So it's almost like a continuous job interview.
In a way.
Yeah.
You're showcasing your knowledge and your passion to the world.
And maybe catching the eye of someone at ESPN.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, I love it. Now let's move on to YouTube. It seems like a natural fit for personal branding. What are some things to keep in mind when creating content for YouTube?
YouTube is all about consistency, experimenting with different formats, and optimizing your videos for discoverability.
I bet the competition is fierce on YouTube. It's not enough to just create great content. You have to make sure people can actually find it.
Absolutely. Gary Vaynerchuk really emphasizes treating your YouTube channel like a business. Don't just throw up random videos.
Right.
Have a strategy. Think about your audience, what kind of content they're looking
If
for.
the intention.
Yes. Craft compelling titles, descriptions, keywords, and promote your videos on other platforms. Make it easy for people to find and engage with your content.
Okay, so be strategic, but also be creative, right?
Mm.
Like, didn't we see that with Daniel Markham and his son Lincoln?
What's inside?
What's inside? They started by just cutting open a baseball.
And it took off millions of views.
Hmm.
They even turned down a lucrative brand deal
Mm.
because it didn't align with their values.
That's amazing. So staying true to your brand and your audience can really pay off in the long run.
Authenticity is key. People can spot a fake from a mile away. Okay, we've covered musical, not like Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube. Ready to tackle the big one.
Bring it on. Let's talk Facebook. I feel like it often gets overlooked these days.
A lot of people think of Facebook as the platform for, older generations.
Yeah.
But it's still a powerhouse for building a personal brand, especially if you understand how to leverage its strengths.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of the strengths of Facebook that people might be missing?
Well, for starters, it has a massive user base, over 2 billion monthly active users.
That's a lot of eyeballs.
It is. And Facebook is incredibly effective for word-of-mouth marketing.
How so?
Well, it's a platform built on sharing. So your content has the potential to reach a much wider audience organically.
So even if you don't have a huge following, you can still gain traction by creating content that people want to share.
Exactly. And here's another big one. Facebook is really investing in video content. So it's a prime platform for anyone who's comfortable on camera or wants to experiment with different video formats.
Oh, and Facebook Live.
Yes. Facebook Live is an amazing way to connect with your audience, answer questions in real time, showcase your personality.
Okay, I'm starting to see Facebook in a whole new light. Now let's move on to Instagram. It's definitely the place for visual storytelling. But what are some specific strategies for building a personal brand on Instagram?
Instagram is all about creating visually appealing content that tells a story. Think high-quality photos, videos, compelling captions, consistent aesthetic.
And hashtags, right. I feel like I'm constantly trying to keep up with the latest hashtag strategies.
Hashtags are crucial. They're like the key words of Instagram.
So it's important to use the right ones.
Yeah, use hashtags that are relevant to your content and your target audience, but don't overdo it.
Okay, good to know. What about collaborations? Instagram seems like a perfect platform for partnering with other creators and brands.
Absolutely. Collaborations are fantastic for cross-promotion and reaching new audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that example Gary Vaynerchuk gives about the clothing store manager?
The one who uses Instagram to connect with local influencers.
Yeah, offering them discounts, inviting them to events.
It's all about being proactive, right?
Exactly. Finding those creative ways to get your brand in front of the right people.
It's amazing to see how many different paths there are to building a personal brand.
And we've got one more platform to talk about. Podcasts.
Podcasts. I love podcasts. What makes them so effective?
Well, for one, they're a less intimidating format for those who might not be comfortable on camera.
Mm.
It's all about your voice and your message.
Yeah, and you can listen to them while you're doing other things.
Exactly. Podcasts are perfect for our multitasking lifestyles. And they offer this incredible opportunity to connect with your audience on a deeper level. It's like having a conversation, sharing your expertise.
And John Lee Dumas is a perfect example, right? He built his incredibly successful podcast by committing to a daily show and just consistently delivering high-quality content.
He's a master at consistency, and just like with the other platforms we've discussed, he found creative ways to leverage his podcast to build his overall brand.
So it's not just about the podcast itself, it's about integrating it into your overall strategy.
You got it. Think of it as another avenue for sharing your story, your expertise, your perspective. And, Gary Vaynerchuk actually talks about how he initially hesitated to embrace the full potential of his own podcast.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah, he was mainly using it to repurpose content from his other channels.
So he wasn't really utilizing the unique format.
Right. But then he realized he could use it to share a wider variety of content, like behind-the-scenes rants, clips from his keynotes, even personal reflections.
And that resonated with his audience.
Absolutely. He was able to connect with them in a whole new way.
It's interesting to see how even someone like Gary Vaynerchuk goes through that process of discovery and evolution.
It shows the importance of constantly experimenting and evolving our approach. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more crucial aspect of personal branding that we need to address.
Okay, I'm ready. What is it?
The future of personal branding. Voice-first technology.
Voice-first technology. Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that even mean for personal branding?
Well, it's all about those platforms like Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant.
Yeah.
You know, those voice-activated devices.
Right.
They're changing how we consume information, and that creates a whole new landscape for building a brand.
So instead of like typing a search into Google, I'm just asking Alexa a question.
Exactly, and that shift to voice search is happening so fast. Google's already reported that 20% of mobile searches are voice searches.
Wow, 20%. That's huge.
Wow.
But how does that translate to personal branding?
Well, think about it. When you ask Alexa something, you don't get a list of websites.
You get one answer, right?
Exactly. You get a single authoritative answer.
So you need to be that answer.
You want to be the voice that Alexa chooses to answer that question.
Okay, I get it. But how do you do that? How do you optimize for voice search?
Well, it's a whole different set of strategies, a different way of thinking about content creation. Vaynerchuk talks about creating content specifically for those voice-first platforms.
So not just repurposing your blog posts or videos.
Right. You need to think about how people ask questions verbally. What keywords are they using? What kind of information are they looking for in that audio-only format?
It's like learning a whole new language.
It is.
Yeah.
And just like with any language, it takes practice. But the rewards could be huge. Imagine being the go-to source in your niche for Alexa or Google Assistant.
That's next level stuff. Vaynerchuk gave that example with the manners expert, right?
Yeah. The one who built an Alexa skill to answer etiquette questions.
Right, and just by providing valuable information in that voice-first format, she can reach a whole new audience.
And drive them back to her other content like her website or social media.
It's brilliant. So it's about adapting to new tech and finding those creative ways to leverage it.
Absolutely.
It's a bit daunting, but also exciting.
It is we're on the cusp of a whole new era.
We are. So what does this all mean for our listener? What are the key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that building a personal brand takes passion and hustle and a willingness to embrace these new platforms and technologies.
Be adaptable, be consistent, and always be learning.
And above all, take action. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect moment.
Just start, right?
Just start.
Yeah.
What's one thing you can do today? Create a Twitter profile, post a video, brainstorm some ideas.
Anything.
The people crushing it are the ones who are putting themselves out there, experimenting, engaging.
Building relationships, providing value, and staying true to yourself.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be sharing your story in the deep dive.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into personal branding. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired and ready to build your own online empire.
Until next time, keep crushing it.